How's your culture? I hope it's a culture that you're building by design, not one that you're just leaving to random chance. Mark, you say all the time, hope is not a strategy. We got Mark Miller back with us here from Chick-fil-A. Mark and I worked together on all kind of stuff through the years, and Mark's got a new book out called Culture Rules. If you've not pre-ordered your copy, go to leadeveryday.com and get that. It's coming out March 7th, I think. They'll get it. You got all kind of good stuff at leadeveryday.com. They can have opportunities, but we're going to jump into these rules here as we go through these next few days. And Mark, the first rule is what we kind of left them with yesterday. It's to aspire. I asked the question, what kind of culture do you want? Go at it.
Right.
Let's
the
talk about
first rule is to aspire, to share your hopes and dreams for your culture. Now, before anybody out there says, well, that's pretty simple, just hang on to that thought, because I would argue it is relatively straightforward. We met so many leaders that cannot articulate their hopes and dreams for their culture. And even some who can't do it in a way that it's simple, that it's clear, and that it's repeatable. And so what that means is they confuse people, and it means that they don't have anybody else helping them, because the people around you don't actually know what you're aspiring to create.
Yeah. What happens when we leave it to chance and we, can you talk about that?
Well,
I mean, if we think we know it, or maybe we don't even think about, do we know it? And we don't say it, and we don't have people to get, speak to that.
Well,
I mean, you've seen that before.
Well, no individual, no team, no organization, and no culture drifts to greatness. They are led there.
Yeah.
Even when you think about yourself, you got to lead yourself,
right,
if you want to chase greatness.
Right.
And if you don't share your cultural aspiration, people are left to guess. And there's no opportunity for synergy. There's no opportunity for collaboration. There's no opportunity for teamwork to pull towards that aspiration collectively. So it's you end up with a culture by default, even if the leader believes it's clear in his or her mind's eye.
Yeah, and we've seen this before. One of the exercises we've used and you've talked about before is if you think everybody's on the same page, pass out some 3x5 cards and ask what's our cultural aspiration. And chances are, we've seen this over and over. You got 10 people around a table, you get 10 different answers, right? Well, I mean,
right. Unless you've done the hard work to forge a consensus and
clarify
to do the things that you have to do to make that culture.
So how do we do that? Like, let's just say somebody's listening and they say, I hear what you're saying. I've got to have a clearly defined, this is what I want. Like, how do I work on aspiring to, what am I aspiring to?
Well, let me
what's
first,
the right answer?
Let me first say there is one predominant pitfall or stumbling block that I have seen for decades, and it's around language. You can use vision, mission, purpose, values, ethos. You can use any number of mechanisms, any number of tools to help you articulate your aspiration, but you have to decide. And you've got to be really, really clear on what you mean by that term. There are a lot of smart people out there that define mission this way, and there's another group of smart people that define mission that way, and there's another group of smart people that define mission that way. So you can have three groups of people talking about mission, and they're talking about fundamentally different things. So I tell leaders, pick whatever label you want and define it for your organization. And if you choose to use several of those, you can actually parse it out, and that values actually do mean something different than mission or vision or, so forth and so on. And that's fine. But get it really, really clear, because I mentioned this yesterday. It needs to be clear, it needs to be simple, and it needs to be repeatable. And there's value in strategic repetition. And so avoid that first stumbling block and getting all caught up in language.
You want everybody basically saying the same thing.
You do.
I mean,
you want them using the actual same language.
It's really important. And one of the things y'all do, I'll kind of take a side road here. At Chick-fil-A, one of the things y'all do is you don't necessarily in your cultural, I don't know if you call this your cultural aspiration, but one of the things you're talking about now the last few years is to be the most caring company in the world. That has nothing to do with chicken, you know.
Right.
And yet there are people listening who you have a business you're in or something, and you've got another something you're passionate about. Even as you think about your culture, the reason you want a culture is because you're trying to do something that's maybe bigger than what your business is.
Right. You make a great point there. Culture is not the goal. Now, it is the predominant driver of performance. Peter Drucker, who some of the audience may know that name, he's, I think, the greatest management and leadership thinker of the last 2,000 years. He said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So I'm not saying culture is not important, but culture is not the goal.
Right.
Performance is the goal.
Right.
And culture is an enabler.
Right.
And it's critical. And it is the chief enabler.
Yeah.
But you're trying to accomplish something else.
Yeah. So the question today is, what kind of culture do you aspire to have? Say it again, that you want to share your hopes and dreams for your culture with your people. You want to make sure that everybody's locked in. They're saying the same thing. So do you have a group of people right now who, if you could go to anybody in your organization, what is our cultural aspiration? What would that be? Would they all say the same thing? If not, you've got work to do. I encourage you today to begin to share that with the people around you. You have to aspire. It's rule number one. We're going to give you a couple more rules. We'll get to the next one tomorrow. Hope you'll share with somebody. Come back tomorrow and join us for more Chasing Greatness. We're going to be with Mark Miller again. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.